The following is a world-class Bullshitters exclusive.
There's a massive pushback against the video game The Last of Us 2. People are outraged, disappointed, and on the brink of insanity. And the game's only been out one weekend. We dropped the Last of Us 2 video discussing the cult of Naughty Dog and how their politics outweigh everything else, including their ethics. But today, we're going to continue the trend of following the decline of The Last of Us 2 and talk about the double standards in the review scores. There's a very us versus them mentality in this culture war. Creators, journalists, and general suck-ups are all against us, the fans, or the people who just ask the simple question, why? Why this? Why now? It seems like all these severe changes in entertainment have happened abruptly, and each time fans push back, they push back harder, hoping to break us down and defeat us. Sadly, for them, they just don't realize how resilient we are. Within a few hours of The Last of Us 2's release, Forbes, the premier website for video game coverage, had an article covering the review bombing taking place against the unjustly victimized video game, The Last of Us 2. Well, we should have all seen this coming. The Last of Us Part 2 has only been out for a few hours, and yet there's already a war raging over on Metacritic. The game is the newest battleground for user score bombing of a major release, where it has a 3.4 out of 10 as opposed to a 9.5 critical consensus, which puts it at one of the top reviewed games of this generation. I am already seeing this being used as ammo for the, critics are so out of touch with mainstream audiences argument, but no, that's not what's happening here. Excuse me, Paul, but that's exactly what is happening here. I don't usually cut into these things so early because I want to give these writers time to dig their own graves with their stupidity. But I'm not going to let you flat out lie. That's what this writer is doing. He claims this Last of Us 2 situation is fishy, but he conveniently overlooks the same thing happening to a game that doesn't pander to his agenda. Last time we talked, I mentioned how Call of Duty, Modern Warfare, last year's highest selling game, which sits at an 80 on Metacritic from reviewers, but a 3.2 from fans. A massive departure from what critics said, just like The Last of Us 2. But when I searched to see if our good friend Paul, had anything to say about the same thing happening to Call of Duty, the only thing that popped up was an article calling Call of Duty the best reviewed game of the series since 2011. Paul wasn't crusading for the game like The Last of Us 2. It looks like Paul's bias is showing. Don't tell anyone. In the interest of fairness, let's see what fans are saying about Call of Duty versus The Last of Us 2 on Metacritic. My sampling comes from the most helpful section of the comments. I feel like this could use a little music though, but because of copyright reasons, well, let's just stick to a tune we all know and most of us love. So here we are on Metacritic, looking at the scores for Call of Duty Modern Warfare. As you can see, it has an 80% from the critics. It has a 3.2 from the fans, with over 8,000 reviews. So there's a pretty large discrepancy there. But just because it doesn't fall in line with the rest of our friend Paul and other media reviewers' beliefs, well, it doesn't matter. So, here we go. On the most helpful page, a 0. The developers just decided to accuse Russia of the U.S. Army crimes. Just look at the example of the Highway of Death. We also have 0 from Red Ock Tower that says 10 out of 10, bad Soviets in 2020. Both of those talk about politics. David Lynch, world-famous director, chimes in to tell us, calm down, guys. It's all about marketing instead of creating a good story. They made it stupid, simple, and very brutally. Let's see. Our friend Giovanni says propaganda. We have our next reviewer from Geekabaz that says Russia-phobic propaganda. Again, political. We also have a 4 out of 10 score that's talking about the developers. Okay. Propaganda. Russia-phobic propaganda. Propaganda. I only see the word propaganda. Well, some could argue that The Last of Us 2 is propaganda as well. But oh no, we can't have that conversation because you're hateful. You're a bigot if you say that. Again, the whole point of this video is double standards, folks. And again, an obvious political order of the US government against Russia. Do you think the government actually called Activision and said, yo, we gotta put Russia in their place. Let's make a video game. Let's use Call of Duty as the example. How come we don't talk about the crazy stretches on the other side? Again, it's very obvious. I'm asking you a rhetorical question at this standpoint, and I'm stopping from reading all this shit on the screen because it's a lot of zeros, it's a lot of Russia talk, it's anti-America talk, it's propaganda left and right, and I'm seeing tons and tons of reviews, and these are the most helpful reviews, meaning people posted these early October 26th, right after the game came out, and hundreds of people, found these reviews helpful. So, again, I just want to ask, honestly, why is it a problem for The Last of Us 2, but why is it not a problem for Call of Duty Modern Warfare? Both are big AAA titles. There's a double standard here, and it's very unfair. And so here we have The Last of Us 2, which is actually The Last of Us Part 2, and Metacritic will not recognize it unless you pick the right title. So, looking at The Last of Us Part 2, we have a 95 from the user score, a 3.5 user score, the 95 was the critic score. Most helpful score was a 5 out of 10. As somebody who normally is a fan of Naughty Dog games and the original Last of Us, I feel this game was a slap in the face. Graphics a 9, gameplay a 5, story a 1. That's kind of hard to dispute. That's a very middle of the road score. So what problem does this review actually bring to the table? It doesn't fall in line with our friend Paul's narrative. That's where it's a problem. Now, as you can see after this 5 from JackBones92, we also have 2 0 scores. And by the way, JackBones compares this game to Game of Thrones and Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. It'll disappoint even the most loyal fans. Ouch. So 2 zeros in a row, we have a 4. It says disrespect towards the first game. The story and the characters are horribly written. It doesn't even make me angry anymore, just sad. Ooh. Rivals The Last Jedi. Now this comment did not influence the title of the video. I just saw the parallels, which you'll hear later in the video as well. Another 0. It could have been the best game of all time. It suffers from a lack of a narrative. There's definitely a narrative out there for The Last of Us 2, just not the one that they want. We have a 3 out of 10 from Frangelis, who says, "This breaks my heart to write this. I didn't expect such a poor story after all these years of waiting." That's an even bigger problem that nobody complains about. All this waiting, it took 7 years to release The Last of Us 2 after the first one, and you get this. It's like, trying to give a better example, I almost said Superman Returns, but some people still like that film. But they waited 19 years for a Superman film, and that's what you got. A lot of 4s, a lot of 3s. You know what's funny is I see less 0s on this than I did Call of Duty. You want to talk about weaponized fan scoring? I'm using the same sample size, most helpful reviews, first page with the most helpful comments, and I'm seeing higher scores and more praise than I was seeing a wall of 0s for Call of Duty. So, hypocrisy, double standards, Forbes only deals in these things. And IGN's review seems to be the most accurate depiction. A lot of people seem to be referencing that one. I know we covered it heavily in our Last of Us 2 video, to the point where I read the whole thing translated. So now that you've seen both of those compared side by side, you begin to see the narrative that's being formed by people like Paul and the journalists. It's nothing new. Agenda and narrative go hand in hand, and for Paul to outright tell us that it's not the case, well, Paul, I can kind of see the case. Instead of taking that man's words, I've looked at it, especially using his words against him, because he has no problem with Call of Duty suffering the same thing. He's ignorant to that. So looking at those helpful reviews from each game, we can see a much different outcome. Call of Duty's reviews are filled with anti-US sentiment, while The Last of Us 2 is full of disappointed fans and angry consumers. Now, which seems politically charged? The rest of Paul's argument is pretty weak. He tries to boil it down to 3 reasons why people don't like The Last of Us 2. 1. The game's prominent use of LGBT characters. 2. The spoilers for the game that leaked out ahead of time, context-free. Many people did not like the plot turns revealed. And 3. Perhaps someone who have played the game for the initial hours and didn't like the game, albeit scoring it a 0 out of 10 for clunky controls after a few hours seems extreme. What, not enough water? I think it would be more honest for Paul to just say what he really meant and remove the last 2 possibilities, because that's what this is all about. Now, thankfully, Paul's article is free of words like bigot or homophobe, so that's a step in the right direction, but it's all there. Just read between the lines. I'm not a fan of review bombing, anything actually, but I have a problem with the lack of integrity here, because if you have a problem when it attacks your views, why not talk about it when it's on the other side? When I think about The Last of Us 2's controversy, I'm reminded of 2 things: Star Wars: The Last Jedi and Captain Marvel. Yes, it's a disappointing follow-up to something beloved, but it's also blindly defended, critically praised, and when fans fight back, the efficacy of a review platform is changed to meet the needs, wait a tick, strike that, Reverse it. The review platform has changed not only to protect the project, but the ideology it represents. If you don't remember when The Last Jedi came out, it was met with critical praise, but severe fan backlash. On the review aggregate website Rotten Tomatoes, there was a massive score discrepancy to the tune of 50%, which called into question the legitimacy of scores. Of course, no one placed the blame on Disney for making a terrible film. They, the ardent defenders of Disney, blamed Russian bots and trolls. Yeah, that's about as stupid as it sounds, but it was widely accepted. Just look at all the results on Google. There was even a scientific study into the issue, though scientific is far too kind of a word to describe Morton Bay's research. Stupid is a much more apt descriptor. Yeah, we'll go with that. Stupid. Thankfully, some of those reasons washed over these people, and like wash, they were run through with the truth. Captain Marvel was another film that got this treatment. It was protected from the minute Kevin Feige had the idea of bringing that unlikable continuity-breaking Maverick to the big screen. We weren't happy with the hate spewed from Brie Larson, but the media accused us of being the most hateful group of humans the world has ever seen. I refuse to say the most hateful group of dudes because women hated Captain Marvel too. A lot of them. It was only a success because it was the lead up to the biggest movie ever. Any movie would have been a success in that spot. I guarantee a film about Aunt May making wheat cakes would do Captain Marvel numbers, and it wouldn't have to ruin the other Avengers films in the process. The biggest problem that Captain Marvel produced was altering Rotten Tomatoes for the benefit of Captain Marvel, while taking away the freedom of the audience to voice their opinion and to corral the conversation and make sure that only the words that got out about the film were fully approved by Disney. Voices were censored to protect Captain Marvel's box office. Think about that. Freedoms were traded for money. The reason I compared The Last of Us 2 to both The Last Jedi and Captain Marvel was because, like both of those, fans have issues with the products outside of the political rhetoric used to protect the questionable choices. Star Wars fans hate women and minorities? No. Star Wars fans hated watching their favorite characters cast aside for lesser versions of the character they just threw out, and an utter lack of respect for the lore. MCU fans hate women? No, just one woman actually. And even then, Brie Larson brought it all on herself. Don't need the opinions of white dudes? Well, nobody needs the opinion of an out-of-touch Hollywood brat who lacks the decency not to mock Stan Lee's legacy the day he died. You also don't need those white dudes' money either. Imagine the box office for Captain Marvel if no white men showed up. Imagine the box office for Star Wars if women never liked it in the first place. Do gamers hate the LGBT community? No, gamers were pissed off at their favorite characters being tossed aside in favor of the agenda-driven nobodies of the new game. Add in the general dickery from Neil Druckmann and the crew over at Naughty Dog, and the result is what you got. Excuses are the name of the game. Anytime some sort of IP holder warps something that is generally beloved, fans push back, and the result is always the same. I'm sure the parallels between The Last of Us 2, Captain Marvel, and The Last Jedi are more than I've listed here, but I'm not giving Naughty Dog my money anymore. I had a great run with Uncharted, but that's over, and I was very relieved to see that the new Crash Bandicoot game is in no way associated with them. The biggest thing I've learned from all of this is that we haven't heard the last of people calling for Metacritic and other review sites to change their ways of operating because of The Last of Us 2. Hell, even in the article from Forbes, there's a call for Metacritic to reform, citing, "I would expect that Metacritic may take some kind of action here, as they don't take kindly to these sorts of campaigns. I still think they need some sort of verification system that you at least own the game to post a user score, and Rotten Tomatoes has recently instituted something similar for film, because this is just silly, and I don't think anyone should read anything into the quality of a game based on these unbiased truth-tellers that are currently mobbing the game." Yeah, that would be great, Paul, if it covered all the sides of the political spectrum, you weasel. A pro-America first-person shooter deserves the same protection as some artsy piece of shit that appeals to the whims of reviewers. If you're gonna die on that hill to protect The Last of Us 2 from being review-bombed, make sure you do it the same for Call of Duty or any other video game that gets the same treatment. But you're not, and you won't. Your bias is showing, and you might want to cover that up. You're insulting us, and you're embarrassing yourself. So what do you guys think of all of this stuff? Do you see the double standard and the hypocrisy? Do you understand why I titled this video, The Last Jedi of Video Games? It's the same thing. Put out a follow-up to something generally loved, ruin it, and wait. Well, the fans pushed back because you took something they cared about, and you ruined it. And that's as simple as it is. I'm tired of the politicization of all of this stuff. Look, there's going to be hatred in every community. There is no group of people that like everything that are perfect saints. And where do you draw the line? I have no problem with anybody from any walk of life. But all of a sudden, the wrong think is going to get your rights to share your opinion taken away. I didn't really like that Ellie had brown hair in The Last of Us. Guess what? You're attacking women, your opinion's invalid. You know, I really didn't like that the X button and the circle button's features were switched, and you know what? That's a complaint. You're blocked by Sony, you piece of trash. These seem like crazy examples that I'm giving, but that is the future. Again, with the movies, you give them an inch, they take a mile. 2 weeks ago was Gone with the Wind. Last week, they're coming after Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Forrest Gump, and the Dirty Harry films. And the same is with video games. You know, one day, The Legend of Zelda will no longer be about Link rescuing Princess Zelda and being a fun adventure series. No, it's going to become a bunch of political bullshit, and they're going to make it all about Zelda, and you're going to have a repeat of the CDI game. And nobody, and I mean nobody, wants a repeat of the CDI game. You understand that, Metacritic? You understand that every dickhead out there in the world that reviews video games? Nobody wants another CDI Zelda, so shut the fuck up and stop with this crap. Nobody wants it! Sorry, I'm really passionate about The Legend of Zelda. I take that back. Actually, I don't take that back. Screw you people. No CDI Zelda games ever. That's the platform I'm running on in 2020. Let's make it happen. All joking aside though, folks, thank you for watching this video. We have had a huge outpouring of new subscribers over the last couple of days with our Last of Us 2 coverage, and it's been exciting. It's very fun to cover the premier dumpster fire of 2020. Last year it was Captain Marvel, the year before that, oh god, it was too many things in 2018. But the nice part is, none of this is stopping, so that means none of us here at World Class Bullshitters are stopping. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure you give it a thumbs up and share it all over social media. If you're a fan of this channel and you want more of us and you'd like to see us grow even bigger, well, check us out over on Patreon. We offer all sorts of tiers and perks, and if Patreon goes against your views, well, guess what? This week we're going to be putting out our Subscribe Star account as well as applying for the YouTube Partnership Program. So if you want all those bonus perks of extra content and everything we would put on Patreon, well, guess what? We're going to put it over here on YouTube, as well as like little icons of us from the comic book and stuff like that. So we'll give you the full experience. It's just going to take us a couple of days, but we figured we'd let everyone know because we're going to the top, Daddy-O. And that is a Jimmy the Mouth of the South Heart reference, so I'm not calling you Daddy-O for other reasons. Anyway, my point is though, folks, thank you for watching. I appreciate each and every one of you, but I have one request. What is it? It's very simple. Go out into the world and be excellent to each other.